Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And it's interesting, I was listening to something earlier today, and they were saying, you don't need to make money doing this. And of course, he was being facetious because he said, even if it's your passion, if it's what you love, now there are volunteer, right? But he said, if you're doing this for a living, you need to make a living, which means you need to have money. You know, most of us were not born independently wealthy. Most of us do have bills that we have to pay. And so I'm going to have so much fun talking with my guest today. So please join me in welcoming Joel Salomon to our program today. Welcome, Joel. How are you?
I am great. Thanks so much for having me. It's a great honor and pleasure to be here today.
Great. Well, let me tell people just a little bit about you, and then we will jump into this. So Joel Salomon is a finance, mindful money expert and prosperity coach who helps others overcome obstacles standing in the way of their financial freedom. He is the founder of SaLaurMor Management. I think I said that right. And we're going to talk about the name later. And is an award-winning TEDx speaker, workshop facilitator, and frequent television and podcast guest. As a former manager of a $700 million portfolio, the creator of his own successful hedge fund, and the author of 3 best-selling books, he has learned that the true foundation of wealth is a mindset of gratitude, love, and service. And so we're definitely going to talk about that a lot more. But Joel, welcome again to our program.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's really great to be here.
Well, I always ask my guests, tell us a little bit more about yourself because people care about that.
So I started my career and have a long career in the financial services industry and in finance. And so I started my career as an actuary. Deb, you may know the difference between an actuary and an accountant.
Mm-hmm. I am married to one of those actuary people.
Okay, well, an actuary looks at his feet when he talks to you, and an accountant looks at your feet when they talk to you. They say an accountant is an actuary with charisma.
Mm-hmm. Not a lot, but a little.
But I'm not the typical actuary.
You are definitely not.
I did go through all the exams. I am a fellow of the Society of Actuaries. I can still sign the financial statements of insurance companies. Mm-hmm. And so I went through all those exams, and took me 7 years. And I was working at an insurance company when I realized somewhere through the exams that I really disliked actuarial science. I really disliked my day job. Mm-hmm. But one of the exams was on finance and investing. Mm-hmm. And I started applying some techniques in my personal life. Mm-hmm. And while I was working at the insurance company, I realized if I could ever align my hobby and my career, it wouldn't be work, it would be fun. Mm-hmm. And so I reached out to actuaries on Wall Street, and I got consensus. Mm-hmm. Don't move. You have the best job in the country.
Of course they'd say that.
In fact, in 1992, the actuary was on the cover of Forbes magazine as the best job in the United States. Mm-hmm. And of course, once you pass the exams, the stress is low, but during the exams, stress is very high.
It's study every day. I mean, anybody who has, and study for hours every day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I did that. It took me 7+ years. Mm-hmm. And so, but I really didn't want to continue doing that. And so I reached out to dozens and dozens of actuaries on Wall Street and finally found one who gave me his path. And I followed it mostly. And 15 years later, I'm working in 2008 at Citigroup, hired as a professional money manager, hedge fund manager. But Deb, you may remember, I know you're quite young, so you probably don't, but 2008 was not the best year in the stock market.
Finances kind of took a nosedive.
So the stock market here in the US was down 40%. Financial stocks, the only ones I was invested in were down 57%.
Oi.
And I did manage to make a little bit of money for the Citigroup shareholders that year. And the next year was a bit better. And I might actually still be there today, but there was a law that was passed is that banks can't own hedge funds. So we were all laid off, which actually gave me the kick in the butt to do my true dream, which was to have my own company investing. So in 2012, I went about the business of raising money to start my funds and manage other people's money. And I got 2 insurance companies that had to orally agree to give me money. So I was investing in insurance companies, money management companies, business development companies, all the financial type companies. And they knew me. So I went to them when I said, hey, I'm launching this new business. And they said, okay, we're really interested. We like your process. So I went about the rest of the process of starting a hedge fund, hiring a prime broker, a lawyer, accountant, an auditor, finding real estate space. I actually moved into prime real estate space in December 2012, right off of Madison Avenue on 54th Street in Madison.
That is prime.
I actually had glass window, and I actually was able to see Madison Avenue. I'm like, okay, I've arrived. And I get
I'm
in.
here.
I'm here. So first day, get on the phone, call my 2 investors, and both of them backed out.
Because it was an oral agreement.
Yes. And I could have given up.
Right.
I could have said, well, I got this close.
Wasn't meant to be.
But I did something different, and which we could talk about a lot more, which is I acted as if I already had the money. And how did I do that? Well, I went to conferences as if we were already invested, talking with the companies we would be invested in when we actually start. I hired my analyst. I told them, don't come into the office because we were charged based on the seat. So if I was the only one sitting there, we got charged $3,000 per seat. So I was getting $3,000 charge. If he walked into the office, it would be $6,000 a month. And my CFO come in $9,000 and so on.
Yeah, so this was work from home.
The work from home before work from home was even a term in 2013. And so I said, so we got on calls every day. And we acted as if we were already invested. And I did something more crazy. I put together a spreadsheet as if we were already invested in the stocks. And I calculated the returns each day. And I said, hey, Sean, good day yesterday. We made $1 million. Sean, terrible day. We got to move things around. We lost $1 million. Let's figure this out. And we did that throughout all of January. Now, I did also take action, and taking action breeds clarity, right? And so I reached out to a ton of potential investors, other insurance companies, family offices, so on. And I had one good meeting with another insurance company. And 4 weeks after that, we had a tentative written agreement. And 3 months after that, the money was in the bank.
Wow.
And I truly believe by acting as if we had the money, we got the money. So I launched my hedge fund, and I'm living my dream. 2013, we made 10% in 6 months. Unheard of at a hedge fund, because we're hedged. We're like, if the market's going up a lot, we have stocks that we're betting they're going to go down. So we're not going to make as much as if the market goes up. If the market goes down,
a balancing act.
Right. It's a balancing act. Exactly. So we had a great start and continued to have great numbers in 2014. The financials, which were the only stocks that I was invested in, didn't do well in 2014, and we were up. And so we raised more money, and things were looking bright. December 2015, I go to a personal development course, And two things happened there that completely changed my life.
Mhm.
First, we had a guest speaker speaking about stocks and stock options. He spoke for 1 hour. It was a 3-day personal development course. And when he spoke about stock options in particular, he made it sound easy. He said, you don't need much time. You don't need much money. This is how the rich people get rich, and options are essentially risk-free. And I was sick to my stomach. This was day 2 of the conference. So I had people tapping me on the shoulder and whispering, Mayor, Joel, does this make sense? Are
Right.
options
What do
really
you think about
riskless?
this?
And so I was polite. After he was done, we went out of the auditorium. I told him, please don't do this. He has no idea about any of you individually, risk tolerance, tax status, cash flow, earnings, but most importantly, no idea about your belief
Right.
that you can become rich using options. So that was the first thing that happened. The second thing that happened during that personal development course was we were given a wooden board 2 inches thick, and we were told we're going to break it with our bare hand. Have you done it, Deb?
No, because I'm afraid to. Because I
Understood.
don't believe I can.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the exercise was called Obstacles Are Illusions.
Okay.
And on one side of the board, we had to write our biggest obstacle. And on the other side of the board, our ultimate goal, which stumped me for a while. And then it hit me. Make everyone in this room financially free.
Okay.
Make everyone in this room financially free. And then I broke that board like the other 200 people did in the room that day. Went home that night, couldn't sleep. First, the guy was in my head. And I realized if I could ever get up the courage to speak on a stage, because my biggest fear that day was public speaking, if I could ever get up the courage, I could tell people the truth about money, not lie to them, and be of service.
Right.
And then the second thing going on in my head was that wooden board staring back at me from across my bedroom. Actually, half the wooden board. Make everyone in this room financially free. I think it hit me like 4:30 in the morning. I jumped out of bed. I quickly got dressed. I was at my office in Midtown Manhattan before the sun rose. I sent an email to my investors telling them I'm giving them their money back. I'm shutting down my fund. I figured out my true purpose on this earth.
And they thought you had gone insane.
What was interesting is I got crickets. No one responded to that email. Now it was
They were
2 days before.
perplexed.
It was 2 days before Christmas, and
Okay.
but no one ever responded to the. And my lawyer was quite upset, and then my CFO more upset. You can't shut down a hedge fund that way. Anyway,
You did.
I was on the way out, and we officially shut it down in 2016. And so I started this business in 2017 to teach people the truth about money, to change their money mindset, to help them manifest money, and to help them. So I thought when I shut down my fund, I'd be teaching people about money mindset, how to upgrade their money software and investing. And most of my clients, up until 3 years ago, most of my clients have been spiritual entrepreneurs. So the Reiki master, the energy healer, the yoga teacher, meditation teacher, life coach, psychic, those are past and current clients of mine. And they need help with the business side of it. When I asked them, show me your business plan, they looked to me like I had two heads.
Right. We're just here because
We're going to, we have a vision. We want to help people. Okay. That's a hobby, not a business. Right. And so the other thing, so what's happened is when I work on their money mindset and raise that money mindset, now they're bringing in clients. I'm like, okay, now we got to have strategy. We have to have a plan, and we have to have marketing, and people are not going to just fall in your lap, even if like we're manifesting some. I don't believe, and maybe this is a limiting belief, but I don't believe you can manifest every single client.
right.
You have to do some.
You have to help yourself.
Right. You have to get out into the world and take action. Right. And that will also create opportunities, because I will tell you, I don't know any billionaires who just sit at home and meditate and visualize all day.
They work hard at it, and at whatever it is.
I will say that may be a limiting belief, but I will say they take action, and usually it's inspired action. Look, billionaires have the same 24 hours a day, 7 days a week that we do, and they're making 1,000 times or 10,000 times what you're making. And the reason is because they've created leverage in the business model, right? They have other people working for them, or they do group things, right? And that's what I teach my clients is you need to have leverage in your business model.
Right.
So that's how I got to where I am today.
I love it, and just so much here to unpack. The first thing I want to jump into is your company, and I mentioned the company name. And so tell us a little bit more about that, because I think this is just the so special.
So when I started my hedge fund, I wanted to give. So basically, my big why is my kids, right? And so I named my company after my daughters, Lauren and Morgan, LAUR for Lauren, MOR for Morgan. So when I started my hedge fund, and so when I started this prosperity coaching business, I kept the name, and so it's SaLaurMor.com. Lauren, I am very proud of my daughters. I'll talk about them for a couple minutes if you don't mind. Lauren is a senior at Syracuse, about to graduate, and she got a job last August. So most seniors do not get jobs before they start their senior year
because they're busy.
So she got an internship at PNC Bank in Pittsburgh last summer, and they offered her a full-time job, and she's starting in August in Manhattan, in their commercial investment bank internship. So that's pretty cool. And I'm very proud of her. And she's also into the arts. She's an actor and singer.
Oh, so New York's perfect for her.
Right. And my youngest daughter, Morgan, is a sophomore at Colgate. She's going to be a doctor. When you looked at her resume before she graduated high school, it looked like a college graduate. She had so much experience. She is doing an internship this summer in Texas, getting paid in her field, which is unheard of for a sophomore a pre-med in sophomore in undergraduate. So she's going to be there for a few months. I'm excited to visit Texas this summer. So really proud of my daughters.
Right. And I love that your company name honors them, because, I mentioned, several things in your bio, and we talked about it too, that, it's mindset, right? It's how we're thinking about it. It's the why. We all know Simon Sinek's, what is your why? And yours is your family, your daughters. And so everything you do, because of your company name, you're just automatically thinking of them.
Absolutely.
And it's, I love that, because, they may or may not ever now, the one daughter might be involved later in what you do, who knows? But that's not why, it's not going to be, you and daughter, right? That is not, but it is keeping them in mind in a positive way to always be doing that. And it's just, I love that story.
Thank you.
Right. And the other thing you mentioned is, you went to that presentation and you thought, oh, if only I could get up there and be a speaker. You're an award-winning TEDx speaker now. So tell us a little bit more about that journey.
Great question. So when I went to that personal development course, and before, my whole life, if you asked me to speak in front of more than 2 people, I would have read from a piece of paper.
And if you got lost, that was it.
No, but I had the piece of paper I was reading, right? And it was boring and, not animated, and I didn't steal the stage, and I wasn't captivating. And if you put me in the spotlight, just, shoot me. And when I wrote my first book, Mindful Money Management, I realized that I needed to market it. And so in order to market it, I need to speak about it. And I need to speak about it enthusiastically, not reading from a piece of paper. And I went to my mentor, Mike Dooley, who wrote New York Times bestseller Infinite Possibilities. Mike has a note from the universe that goes out to 1.6 million people globally every day. And I'm also certified to teach IP, so Infinite Possibilities. So I asked him, because he tells his story about how he started his career as an accountant. He also was, the guy looking at his.
He was looking at the shoes.
Right. And so he said he joined Toastmasters.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, let me try that. So I met him in October 2016, and I went to different Toastmaster meetings in November, December of 2016 with a lot of fear, a lot of apprehension, a lot of worry at how can I get up there, but I knew I needed to. I had already shut down my hedge fund at the time, and I also knew I needed to
You
grow
needed to
this
pay those
business.
bills.
Right. And so I found the Toastmasters, the Lexington Vanderbilt Toastmasters in Midtown Manhattan, and I joined. And in January, I threw myself in. My daughter, Lauren, was getting bat mitzvahed in 3 months. And so I had a big why. Besides my own why, I said to myself, I want to be able to speak at that bat mitzvah without my piece of paper.
You wanted
shaking
to look at her. You wanted to look at the guests.
the crowd, right? So I will tell you, I have 2 very proud moments in my life. The first one is speaking at Lauren's bat mitzvah in front of 200 people for 17 minutes without any note cards.
I love it.
And the second was speaking at Morgan's bat mitzvah 2 years later in front of 250 people for 16 minutes without any note cards and walking into the crowd. I was confident enough 2 years later with Toastmasters going. By the way, I spoke at Toastmasters pretty much every week from January to March, when March 4th of 2017 was her bat mitzvah. And I basically spoke 8 weeks. Like I practiced, and they gave me feedback. And one of the most powerful feedbacks I got was when I first gave the first speech, and I pretty much read that one, shaking. The president of the club, who wasn't even an evaluator, he came up to me afterwards and said, Joel, this is a great speech. You basically said, I love you, Lauren, in 12 different ways for 17 minutes. No one's going to remember that. I would highly recommend you tell stories and make a point, tell a story and make a point. And so I ripped up that speech and revised it and 2 stories. And I just told 12 stories about Lauren. And Lauren told me on the Monday after, in school, 2 different girls walked up to her and said, your dad gave a great speech at your witness.
He really loves you.
He really loves you. And it was stories about, and by the way, Lauren's a magical manifester, and she's manifested her job at PNC Bank and pretty much everything else. I have tons of stories about her, and that's what I did. That was my speech. I gave stories about how Lauren, wherever we went from, I got divorced when she was 4. And from we started traveling when she was 5 or 6. And for those 7, 8 years before Bar Mitzvah, we would go to Universal Studios, and she would get picked out of the crowd to be at the Animals Act Live show out of 350 kids. Now Morgan was standing right next to her, me, and Lauren would get picked. We went to Dutch Wonderland. We went to Hershey Park. Every amusement park we went to, there was a show we went to, the characters quiz show. She got picked out of and she would be on stage. She was on stage 12 times from age 5 or 6 to 12.
And loved
wherever we went. And loved it because she wanted to be center stage. She she lit up. So anyway, yeah. So that was my speech, and it was memorable because it was all about her manifestations.
Right. And I think the thing is, you were speaking from the heart. And it doesn't matter what we're talking about. That really should be what it is. Otherwise, it is just going to be the I'm reading this and it's a very rote type of thing. And, it's, plug for Toastmasters. I've been an evaluator for them before, but I've never actually participated. But yeah, anytime I have someone who says, "Oi," I send them to Toastmasters. When I lived in Denver, I taught at Metro State and I taught a communications class. And one of the things that I had them do was sample interviews, right? So they would have two people interviewing them. And the thing about Metro, it's a university in the middle of Denver, no dorms. And so it's people 18 to 65 years, right? And so I had this delightful young girl now she was young. I mean, she was, 20 years old. And she'd worked with the two people who were going to be interviewing her for quite a while. I mean, this was not, anything that we threw them into. And she gets, she's the interviewee. And so she's asking their questions or answering their questions. And she looks at me because I was the HR person who popped in and asked those questions, right? And she looked at me and she said, "I'm going to throw up." And she's looking at my feet. And I'm like, "Oh, no, 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 no." Now, I did reach over and grab the trash can just in case. But, and so she was comfortable talking to them. But then all of a sudden she was in front of the room, right? And she wanted to go into public relations. So she's going to be in front of people. And I told her, I said, you really need to go to Toastmasters. And she did. I didn't keep in touch with her. But yeah, Toastmasters is a wonderful way. And they're very small. I mean, it's not like you're all of a sudden talking in front of 1,000 people. It's a small group. People. Well, and they give such positive,
great feedback.
Yes. It's not, "Oh my God, that was horrible."
They use the sandwich technique, which is, telling something positive, something that you did great, something you can improve upon, and something that you did great. And so it's a very kind way of giving feedback. And I learned so much and improved so much of those few years that I went.
Right. So then you became a TEDx speaker. Now, you don't need to go into the great detail about how you did it, but tell us a little bit more about that, what that was like.
So what happened was in the end of 2022, 3 people reached out to me and said, "You should do a TEDx talk."
Huh. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Me? No, I
Why?
didn't have anything to say." And 2 of them, and I went back to them. And so if one person tells me to do something, I'm like, okay, that's an incident.
Yeah.
If 2 people, it's a coincidence. 3 people, that's a pattern. Okay.
Right. Maybe
and then you got to
pay
listen
attention
to
to
it.
it.
So pay attention. So, so I reached back out to them and said, "Do you have any people that could help me get on the stage?" And 2 of them gave me the same person.
That's a sign.
I was like, okay. So, and the third person gave me someone else, and I just said, "Oh, I'll talk to them too." So I talked to both of the programs, the coaching programs, and I had done a little bit of research before, and I don't know if you know the statistics, Deb, but something like 98% of people who apply for a TEDx fail.
Right, because they all think we can do this.
So they apply and they get rejected. So 98% of people who apply get rejected. So out of every 100 people, 2, right? And so when I heard about, so I asked both of these programs, like, so how many people have you gotten on stage? One of them said 17 and one of them said 400.
Oh, okay.
It's like, okay, I'm going to go with the more experienced person who has a lot of process. And so Taylor Conroy's program is, and he probably has 600 or 700 people now that he's coached to get on stage. It's a, how do I put it? He combines basically what I do. He combines mindset and strategy, mindset and process. And so he recorded all these series of videos, right? And that's what I do in my mastermind group for people to follow through to get on TEDx, right? And he has his coaches that work with you as well to create the arc of the speech. And but was really telling for me was that I was in the right place was his first or second video was a visualization. And by the way, rule number 4 in the 9 Money Rules Millionaires Use, my second book, is can visualization help you become financially free? And I was like, I'm in the right place. Right. He had close your eyes, visualize yourself on stage.
You are on
take a deep
stage.
breath in. You're already there. And I, by the way, I recorded it, that audio in my own voice and listened to that every day until I actually got up on stage in Kauai for the first. So I had the inside baseball. I got approved twice. I applied 38 times, got approved twice, once in Kauai, once online for the Texas Cole Park studio. And the Kauai didn't see the light of day, but the Cole Park studio did.
I love it. And I mean, all of this is coming back to what I said in your bio and things like that. And it's mindset, right? If you, I don't know who said it. If you see it, you can be it. And that's the visualization part. But it's about your mindset. And all that, like financial, now I am very fortunate. I'm married to somebody who's very good at that. And so that's, part of my mindset. I will admit that. I don't have to do it because he does. But I have always thought it's hard. I can't do that. All of those things. And, and I'm not saying it's because I'm female, because we obviously have lots of incredibly talented women who do this. But because I always think it's hard, it's going to be hard. I mean, that's just the way it is. And so how do you work with people now, some people, I'm guessing that's the way their mindset is set, but how do you work with people who are like, okay, Joel, I want to get better. I want to do this. Walk us through that.
Yeah. So one of the first questions I ask people, even when they're getting on my calendar, is, are you coachable?
Right.
Are you willing to get out of your comfort zone? And are you willing to put the money, the time, money, and energy into this program for it to be a success for you? Because if they don't answer yes, we don't have a call. Because if you're not open-minded, and so yes, if you believe everything is hard, if it's or impossible. By the way, my favorite book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, says cut out the word impossible. People don't have dictionaries anymore, but cut out from your Wikipedia, cut it out from Wikipedia, impossible. Because if you believe it's impossible, it will be for you.
Right.
And humans have done incredibly amazing things. And if you there have been 100-year-old women running marathons.
Right.
Right. And so the human body is pretty freaking amazing.
Right. Our brain is so powerful.
And the brain, by the way, like, I don't know if it's true that we're truly only using 10% of it, but there's a large amount that we're not tapping into. And I believe that's where we can tap into infinite intelligence. And so we have access to infinite intelligence if we concentrate on that.
Right.
And so, yes, what I do is I upgrade people's money software. They got malware running in the background.
Right. You can't do this. You can't do this. You're going to lose money. Whatever.
And so, right. And so we don't go line by line into the code. What I do is we instill empowering beliefs. What my mentor, Mike Dooley, says is, don't go looking for that invisible limiting belief you have.
Mhm.
It's really hard to find,
Right.
and you may actually find something.
Mhm.
And that's not serving you when you're focused on what's hard, what's
Mhm.
limiting you.
Mhm.
That's what you're attracting.
Right. And you're
So
only probably
focus,
going to find more.
right. If you spend all your time, it's like the woman who's researching cancer day after day after day after day after day, like really on trying to understand, and she doesn't have cancer, but she's researching every day to hear about like and spends her whole day watching the podcast and listening to it, and then my God, she got cancer. How did that happen?
Mhm.
She didn't have any symptoms at
Right.
all,
But her brain was thinking about it.
all day, every day.
Mhm. Mhm.
And look, I'm not saying that happens all the time, but I'm saying, what you think about, you bring about,
Mhm.
right? Most of the time.
Right.
And so if you believe that the stock market's risky,
Mhm.
it's impossible to make money in the stock market,
Mhm.
despite the evidence of millions and millions of people making millions and
They
millions of
got
dollars.
lucky.
Right, right.
Mhm.
So I literally had a woman come to me right after I started doing prosperity coaching, who came to me and said, um, I want to put my money elsewhere. It's all in cash. I have $300,000 in cash. I said, okay, well, why do you have your money in cash? She said, well, it's safe there. And I said, okay, but how much are you earning?
Mhm.
And, I don't know if
Zero.
you're, yeah, in 2017,
Mhm.
the interest rates,
Mhm.
even on the savings accounts, were like 1%.
Right.
So even like high yield was
Mhm.
2,
Yeah.
right? So she
Unless
was
you
like
had a
earning
heck
more,
of a lot you started with, you were not going to make very much.
right? So she was making $3,000 a year,
Ooh.
right, on
Mhm.
300,000,
Mhm.
right? And and so I said, you do know that you're actually getting a negative
Right.
return,
She's losing money. Mhm.
because
Mhm.
inflation is
Mhm.
more like,
Mhm. Right.
okay, the official inflation rate at the time was 2%,
Mhm.
but everyone knows the real inflation rate is higher. And
Right.
today it's
Mhm.
probably 8 to 12
Mhm. Mhm.
percent. If you include,
Mhm.
gas and
Mm,
oil and
yeah.
food, right?
Mhm.
That the people
Mhm.
actually use, not,
Mhm.
oh, let's exclude the things that are high
Mhm.
and make that the
Mhm.
core
Mhm.
inflation rate. That doesn't make any
Mhm.
sense. That's what we're
Mhm.
paying the most
Right.
for.
So we, yeah.
Anyway,
Mhm.
so that's an aside.
Mhm.
But so she was losing money. So
Mhm.
she said to me, look, I want to make more money,
Mhm.
but I want to keep my money safe. I said, okay, are you open to investing in the stock market?
Mhm.
No, the stock market's risky.
Mhm.
I don't want to lose my money. What about investing in property? You could buy, a few properties at really good interest rates. And no, that's, I don't want to
Mhm.
have my money illiquid. I can't get access to it. Crypto was just starting out then. I said, what about bonds?
Mhm.
She said, well, can't they go down? I said, absolutely they can go down.
Right.
She's like, well,
Mhm.
I think I don't want to do any of those.
Mhm.
And so she was not coachable,
No, she
right?
was not.
She was not coachable.
Mhm.
And I've had hundreds of
Mhm.
clients who are coachable,
Mhm.
who say, I want to learn
Mhm.
about the stock market.
Mhm.
I have a 5-step proprietary stock screen I teach.
Mhm.
And last year, because of my speaker coach who has a done for you program herself, she said, why don't she said to all her clients, come up with a done for you service. So I came up with the Invest Smart Engine,
Mhm.
which is a service where people don't need to know my process.
Mhm.
They just get the results of my stock screen every week, and they get to decide how much, or if they are going to
Mhm.
invest. This, the stocks. So the average return
Mhm.
for the Invest Smart Engine since last May has been 74% up to 200%
Wow.
in 1 year.
Mhm.
So that's what clients
Mhm.
have generated since my I started the Invest Smart
Right.
Engine. So you can get really good
Mhm.
returns, but you have to believe. And
Mhm.
that's the other thing I ask my clients
Mhm.
before they start working with me. First, I ask them, what's their belief level from 1 to 10? 10 is absolute faith. 1 is massive doubt that you will get your money back working with me. You have to pay me for me to coach you, right? But do you believe that you're going to manifest it or get a really good return on the money and investments or in your business? You have to come in with at least a 9 or 10, believing that if you're going to work with me, you're getting your money back and multiple. Otherwise, we don't work together.
Right.
And then for the people who I'm teaching investing, I ask the same question, but it's really important that we get a 9 or 10. Because if they say 6, we don't work together because they are going to create their reality. I learned this, by the way, last year when I started the InvestSmart engine. I had 2 people start the same day. One knew me through Infinite Possibilities. She's also an Infinite Possibilities trainer. She knew my work. She knew my hedge fund background. When I asked her what her number was, I'm absolute 10. I know this is going to work. The second guy I met networking. And he really needed to make some money. His business wasn't making any money. He's like, Joel, I got some investments. They haven't worked out. I didn't ask him his number. I didn't ask either of them their number on the day they started. Now I do. So I asked Cindy afterwards, like a couple of months after, because things were going well. What's your number? What's your belief that this is going to work? Oh, 10. This other guy, he probably was lower. I've never asked him, but my guess is probably like a 3.
Okay, so why was he even bothering?
Because he really needed to have some money come in, right? But he had lost money in the stock market previously. Okay, so they both start the same day. There are 2 stocks that pass the first week, my screen. 2 stocks pass my screen. He picks one, she picks the other. The one she picked went up 75% in 3 months. The one he picked
that he was in the
first 3 months went up 3%. The second 2 weeks later, I sent an alert to everyone. A stock that had passed earlier in the year in May, this was August, had come down, had dropped, and now it has my price targets 100% upside again. Sent an alert to everyone. She invests a week later, missed the bottom, but invests like 10, 12% higher. She was on vacation, actually. And he ignored it. That stock went up 175% for her in the next 6 months. He didn't make any money because he ignored it. So she renewed, and she's going to be a lifetime client. She's made so much money in the last year. He didn't renew.
Right. He's gone on to the next thing that he's trying.
So, he'll say Joel's method's crap, and she'll say Joel's the best thing since sliced bread. But they both created their reality. It wasn't me. Right. I mean, I have a process that works for most people. And I will say now I asked the belief question.
Right.
Because last July, it wasn't.
Well, and I guess my thought process would be if I did not think it was going to work and work well, I wouldn't do it. I mean, that's just and even if I talked to, say, Cindy, and she said, oh my gosh, you have to do this, you have to do this. If I still didn't have that faith, then no, I would probably, and now, that said, I might say, okay, I'll do just the bare minimum or, whatever. But again, I'm waiting for it to fail to prove that I was right.
Right. So I've had this conversation a lot. It keeps on coming up in the last week or two. For most humans, seeing is believing. So Cindy got some results. Now her belief level went up. But in reality, her belief level was high to begin with.
Right. Because she knew you.
Believing is seeing. Believing is seeing. It's not seeing is believing. If you believe that if you know in your heart of hearts that I can help you get to $50,000 a month in your business, if you know in your heart of hearts that I can help you double your money, then it will happen. But if you're a 1, massive doubt,
Even
there's
if
no
you're
way
5.
even if you're a 5, right? Even if you're a 5, you have some doubts, then you're going to create the doubts so that it won't work.
Right.
And so now I ask on every call I have, what's your belief level from 1 to 10 that you're going to get a massive return on your investment working with me? And if they're a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's not happening. We're not going forward.
Well, and it's that way with everything, right? I don't know why I was thinking about this. If somebody's dating, right? And you said, what is your goal is to be married. Now, that's their goal. They want to be married. So what is your faith that this person you're dating is going to be the person that if they say, they might still go and have fun, right? But, if they're keeping in mind that goal, then they're going to say bye-bye to that person.
Exactly. If they're my age, they're not wasting time. Right. It's
and because what happens is, if you don't have that faith, then you are looking for things to go wrong.
Exactly.
And then those little things become huge things. Whether it's, okay, I lost 1% today. Oh my gosh. Or, he didn't load the dishwasher right. Whatever it is.
Right. Good point.
And so you're just looking for that positive or that negative. And I think we've all
You're creating it.
Yeah. And I don't, random things pop into my head. I don't know if Yoda actually said this, but this seems like something Yoda would say. There is no try, there is only do. Seems like Yoda, right?
Yeah, I think that is a quote from Yoda. So it's what I teach my clients is, there's do or not do. There's no try. So you're either doing it or you're not doing it. That's it.
Right. Now when I was reading your bio, you mentioned that I mentioned that the true foundation of wealth is a mindset of gratitude, love, and service. So I really want to talk more about that because I think that's it's some people would say, well, that's a little woohoo, right? I just want to make money. I just want to be successful. I just want all these things. But why is gratitude, love, and service what we really need to be aiming for?
So what you appreciate appreciates. What you appreciate appreciates. And so there is an emotional guidance scale. And the lowest level is depression, suicidal. A little bit up is anger. And it goes from there. The highest level is gratitude, appreciation, joy, love, and passion. And those are the same vibrations as abundance and prosperity. And so I will tell you, when you're operating from a place of gratitude, it doesn't mean complacency.
Right.
It means I'm grateful for what I have and I want more to be grateful for. So rule number 5 in the 9 money rules, what you appreciate appreciates, is all about gratitude. I will tell you that has completely changed my life when I started a gratitude journal in 2012. And recently I read a book. One book was called Thanks, and the other book was called A Simple Act of Gratitude. And this guy wrote a thank you note for 365 days to 365 different people. And the manifestations that happened to him during those 365 days, he was a lawyer almost about to go into bankruptcy court. And during the 365 days, the business and personal life completely turned around. And I believe it's truly because of his focus on gratitude. So here's a tip. Write down 3 things you're grateful for every night before you go to sleep and why.
And these don't have to be earth-moving, folks.
Right. It could be, I'm grateful I got through today.
Right.
I'm grateful for being on the Business Power Hour today. Right. I'm grateful for, my health. I'm grateful for my daughters. I say that I actually do a gratitude journal both in the morning and at night, and writing down why is really important.
Right. Not just, and it shouldn't be
I'm
just
grateful for Lorna
because.
Morgan.
Right.
Right. I'm grateful for Lorna Morgan for teaching me unconditional love.
Right.
So that's gratitude. Love, as I already mentioned, is also the highest vibration. So, and we talked about law of attraction. If you can just be grateful, if you can just be love. Lauren actually said this to me just on a phone call a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, "Man, you are wise beyond your years." Like, I mean, like they're up here. Like sometimes they talk, and I'm like, "Could you repeat that for your dad to dumb it down a bit?" Because, you know. But she said, when you are love, you attract love.
Right.
So if you can just be love all day, every day, you're gonna experience that more and more. And so that's so intelligent, right? And so that's gratitude, that's love, and service. I just believe if you're coming from that place of helping others, and I do it, my speaker coach and business coach tells me you're coaching too much on the sales call, right? Like
You're giving it away.
I just that's so it's really hard for me, and maybe that's a limiting belief. I'm working on it. But I just it's hard for me to just like see someone who needs my help in this minute to give them a little bit, give them a little bit of service. And I think when you come from that place of service, the abundance is just incalculable. And so I've met a billionaire, people who have worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and they are the most giving, generous people who coming from a place of service that I know.
Right.
And, of course, the rich person in social media and TV, movies, radio, all characterized as the evil, criminal rich people. But I will tell you in my personal, look, I haven't met 10 million people who are worth over $10 million. But I'm pretty sure you haven't either. So I'm a statistician by training. So I know it's not statistically significant, but the few handfuls of people that I've met who are very rich are the most kind, caring, generous people I've met.
Right. And those that aren't are the most unhappy. I mean, that's the thing. And folks, we're not talking about being Pollyanna. I have people who tell me, "Oh, you're always so happy. How can you be so happy with all of your health issues?" I'm like, "Why not?" I
Have a
mean,
choice.
yeah, and are there bad days and bad times? Yes. But I give myself the grace to go, "Okay, today is not a good day. I need a nap. I'm not going to be able to do whatever." I mean, whatever it is. And go, "Okay, that's all right." Is it something I might need to tell my doctors about? Sure, maybe. But yeah, it's there. And yeah, so frequently some of my, gratitudes are I woke up.
Right, right. And rule number 3, by the way, in the 9 money rules millionaires uses, can happiness buy me money? Not can money buy me happiness. Can happiness buy me money? Because again, not being Pollyanna, but I just truly believe if you're operating from this very high vibration of happiness, and here's another tip anybody who's watching can use. So if you're feeling down about your money situation, write down, or before you're feeling down about your money situation, write down 10 things that make you feel happy. It could be uplifting song, going for a jog, going for a walk, walking to the beach, playing with your kids, playing with your dog or cat, getting a mani-pedi, getting a massage. Well, and it doesn't have to be spending money. Most of these things aren't about spending money, but write down some things that make you happy so that when you're feeling down about your money situation, okay, your business didn't make any money or made very little money this month, just put on some song, meditate,
Right.
visualize.
Play ball with your kids.
Right. Yeah. And it, because if you're wallowing in this low vibration state of worry and fear and anger, then that's what you're attracting.
Right.
So you need to get out. And I'm not saying you can go from down here in sadness up to joy and gratitude immediately. But if you put on the uplifting song, maybe you'll get to hope or you'll get to overwhelm, which is still so much better than depression.
Right, right. I'm the generation that watched Grey's Anatomy, right? Long ago. And they would have their dance parties, when it was, a hard day. Now, let's be honest, they had really hard days. And so they would dance it out. Do that in your office. Nobody has to see you. I don't want anybody to see me doing that. And some days maybe it's just I'm doing a head bob, right? But to me, music is something that is always very, very important. But yeah, hug your kids, sit with your cat, let it purr. I mean, all of those things. And sometimes it's thinking of this didn't go wrong type of things.
Right.
Well, oh my gosh, Joel, this has been so much fun. And I think we've just scratched the surface on this. So I'd love to have you back on again, especially because, let's be honest, the world's a little rough right now, in a variety of ways. And so it's great to be able to think about how can we make it better for ourselves, not for anybody else. And I know, how can we make it better for ourselves? And so I would love to have you on again. But for somebody who says, okay, I'm ready, Joel, how do they find you and what are the services that you provide?
Yeah, so go to SaLaurMor.com, SaLaurMor.com.
I will have that in the show notes.
And so what I'll do is for the first 7 people, get my calendar, and I'm going to give you an individualized roadmap to an extra $10,000 in the next 30 days. This is my financial freedom breakthrough blueprint call. It's normally a $997 call.
Wow. Oh, thank you.
First 7 people, it's my gift to you. So jump on that. And there's a ton of freebies at SaLaurMor.com. But jump on my calendar for those first 7 people. And if you're not the first 7, get on my email list. I have a weekly email that goes out to a few thousand people with a money tip, the money affirmation, and I even highlight a member of my network. And each week I read a book. So I give notes to the book I read that week, both written and audio notes.
I love that. And like you said, your website has so many great resources. And so let's be honest, folks, there's no excuse. No excuse. Well, I really have been having so much fun talking with Joel. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
I think the most important is #doubt the doubt. Have faith in your dream. Don't have faith in your doubt. The doubts are going to come up in your business, but don't have the faith in the doubt. Have faith in the dream. Go back to, your why and think about why you're doing what you're doing. Just don't believe the doubts. They're going to pop up, but doubt the doubt.
I love it. Well, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having so much fun talking with Joel Salomon. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.